Today, folks, I bring you the most bizarre version of Scooby-Doo I've ever seen. It's terrible, it's horrifying, so grab your snacks and let's dive into the video. This series starts by introducing us to Velma, a girl who loves being a mystery investigator and looks quite different physically from what we're used to. One day, Velma was playing in the locker rooms, and at a certain moment, while pulling a prank, she discovers the body of a girl who had been murdered. And that's practically where it all begins, because everyone blames Velma, thinking she did it because she's different from the others. So, in order to prove her innocence, she must find the killer and uncover who the miserable criminal was. She has the help of her only friend named Norbit. Now, you might think it's Shaggy because of how he dresses, but no, it's Norbit, a student who is in love with Velma and will do anything to please her. In other words, he's a total sim. What a shame. They investigate, suspecting the first person, Fred. In this version, Fred is a wealthy and extremely vain guy, and they believe he's the culprit because Norbit was a friend of the victim. And the day before she died, she told Norbit that she had taken a rather compromising photo of Fred. So, Velma assumes that Fred got rid of her to prevent anyone from seeing that photo. When Velma confronts Fred about silencing the victim, the idiotic blonde guy acts mysteriously and doesn't deny it. As a result, the police, who were listening to everything, decide to blame him for the girl's death in the locker room. It's important to mention that Fred reacts strangely when he hears that accusation and claims he didn't do it. Velma is calm and happy because she has now proven her innocence. However, she needs to solve another case. You see, she frequently has strange hallucinations, and it's because she feels guilty about her mother's disappearance 3 years ago. Now that she has successfully solved a case and feels capable, she believes she can find her mother. She thinks her mother was abducted and didn't simply abandon her. In the process, we learn many things, such as Velma and Daphne being good friends in the past. However, they drifted apart because Daphne became more beautiful and popular, which is the opposite of Velma. Daphne is the daughter of 2 police officers in the city, which is why Velma tries to talk to her and ask her to provide the file on her mother's case. She wants the details of how her mother disappeared. At first, Daphne hesitates to give it to her because they haven't been best friends for a long time. But as they communicate again and reconnect, Daphne remembers the beautiful friendship she had with Velma, so she decides to hand over the file on her mother's case to restore that old friendship. When Velma sees the file, she realizes that the last record the police had of her mother was that she was at Fred's family's house. It seemed like everything pointed to Fred being responsible for the girl's death and her mother's disappearance. However, we later find out that Fred wasn't the killer. It turns out that Fred paid off the girl, not to silence her by killing her, but to prevent her from showing the compromising photo she took of him in the dressing room, which revealed that Fred had a very small you-know-what. And furthermore, while Fred was in prison, 2 more murders of 2 other girls occurred where their brains were removed. Since Fred was incarcerated during these incidents, it became clear that he wasn't the real killer. Additionally, in these 2 new crimes, the police identified a certain pattern. They always targeted the most beautiful and popular girls. As a result, the police decided to protect only the 5 hottest girls in the high school. This infuriates Velma because she finds it unfair that the less attractive girls don't have someone to protect them. To silence Velma's complaints, the police tell her that she can decide who the hottest girls in school are. Now Velma has to choose who the sexiest girls are, and since they also want to be chosen due to their vanity, they make an effort by wearing their most provocative outfits. However, Velma feels that she isn't capable enough to decide, so she asks Fred for help. Since Fred is also shallow and vain, it's easy for them to do it together. Indeed, Fred uses all his wisdom to choose the 5 girls. Velma realizes that Fred has superficial tastes, so she gives him a book to help him understand that women are not just about external beauty. This changes Fred's perspective, and he ends up falling in love with Velma. Now he wants to help her find the killer and also find her mother. Fred tells Velma that her mother had been to his house before because it used to belong to a famous scientist named Dr. Purdue. But that's not all. Fred does some research on this doctor at the library and discovers that Velma's mother had taken all the information about the doctor. So, Velma realizes that she needs to find more information about this scientist. Now that Fred has proven to be quite helpful, let's talk about him a bit. As I mentioned, he is extremely vain and also super wealthy, but he's essentially useless. He even needs assistance to have his food cut for him. The problem is, his parents are annoyed with him because they know they will eventually pass their powerful empire to this blonde little guy, and they aren't very happy about it because they know he's completely useless. Let's also talk a bit about Daphne. When she handed the DJ Velma file to Velma, Velma had a rather disturbing vision. To calm her down, Daphne held her hand, and they both felt something special between them. On the other hand, when Orbit saw that Daphne was spending a lot of time with Fred, and he also witnessed Velma and Daphne kissing, he got himself a girlfriend as well. It seems fair. After several days of investigation, Velma had the idea to ask the high school principal if she knew anything about her mother and Dr. Perdue, the scientist. The principal revealed that Dr. Perdue was a brilliant neurosurgeon who discovered an innovative way to keep brains alive outside the body. A wicked general from the army believed he could use this groundbreaking method to benefit his country. He wanted to transfer the brains of soldiers into rebellious young people so they could serve the country. This top-secret project of brain transplantation was codenamed Ramirito. The project was progressing optimally until Dr. Perdue went insane and was locked up in a mental institution. With this new information, Velma realized that the girls' murders were connected to Dr. Perdius's experiments, since their brains were removed. She also understood why her mother was seeking information about the scientist, because her mother also enjoyed solving mysterious things, just like Velma. Following this revelation, Velma went to Fred's family house, where she discovered an underground laboratory. Among various things, she recognized her mother's handwriting on a page and found a phone number that she believed belonged to the person who was killing the girls and taking their brains. When she called the number, nobody answered, but she could hear breathing on the other end. Based on the background noise, she deduced that the criminal must be at the Mist Festival. So, Velma went to the festival disguised as a man, because she believed that a woman couldn't attend such an event alone. Sexism, you know. While searching for the suspect, she bumped into Daphne and got caught up in dancing and conversing with her. They had such a great connection that they ended up falling in love. Fred realizes that the man with the mustache is actually Velma in disguise. He gets upset with her for deceiving him, but not too upset. Meanwhile, Shaggy and Norville, who were also at the party, compete for the title of the sexiest man. As they chase each other, it becomes a reference to the original Scooby-Doo series. Taking advantage of the fog, the real killer appears during the chase. The four main characters stumble upon him, but he disappears when the fog lifts. They realize that the criminal dropped his cell phone, which excites them because it's a new clue. Minutes later, when the group separates, the killer kidnaps Fred. The next day, they examine the criminal's phone and find only a picture of a mountain. They decide to go there. On the other hand, Fred wakes up in a dark place and finds 3 talking brains. He realizes that they are his high school friends who were previously murdered. They talk with Fred, flirt with him, and Fred becomes the boyfriend of one of the brains. Being a bit of a drama queen, he naturally argues with his new brain girlfriend. Meanwhile, Velma and Daphne enter the cave, hearing Fred's screams. They reach the secret laboratory and Velma notices the brains. She asks the girls who killed them, and they respond that it was the person wearing the welding mask. At that moment, the cave starts collapsing due to Fred's screams. Since Velma needs to take the brains to gather more clues, she grabs the jars to save them and performs a super jump. Nevertheless, Velma falls because the tremors are very strong, and just as she's about to fall into the void, her mother appears and saves her by stretching her arm out. And they plan to use a car that is nearby. As Velma is happy to see her mother when they exit, she asks her at the hospital what happened to her and who was the person who kidnapped her and kept the brains in the jars. However, despite DJ's attempts to remember, she can't. The doctor nearby tells them that maybe in a few hours, DJ might be able to remember everything. So Velma doesn't want her mother to have strong emotions that would trigger her memory of who kidnapped her. She does everything possible to prevent her mother from finding out that she's not doing well in school, that her father has remarried and has a new sibling. But in the end, DJ finds out everything in a meeting where she suddenly remembers the truth about the case. It turns out that the killer is her. Obviously, DJ is arrested based on her statement, but Velma doesn't believe that her mother is truly the culprit because it wouldn't make sense. Velma looks for Norbit to help her find the real killer, but Norbit wants nothing to do with her. She also asks Fred for help, but he is upset because his parents told him he is useless. By the way, the blonde guy kept Velma's car, and each time he repaints it, it resembles the iconic vehicle we all know. Suddenly, while Velma is searching for more clues, she realizes that her mother may have been hypnotized all this time. Not only that, she discovers that her mother was hypnotized as a child to have those horrible hallucinations, and the true killer is the owner of that watch. Thanks to Daphne's mother, Velma manages to obtain the watch. And after investigating, she realizes that the watch bears the same logo as Fred's multi-million-dollar company. Putting all the pieces together, she now knows who the killer is. So she quickly heads to Fred's mansion, and to her surprise, she finds the blonde guy and Daphne there. At that moment, the killer also appears. But Velma cleverly defeats him using a perfume. The wretched individual is captured, and Velma proceeds to unmask him. We are surprised to find out that the killer all along was Fred's mother. Velma proceeds to explain that Fred's mother is the daughter of the miserable sergeant who forced Dr. Perdillo to develop the Scooby project. It turns out that Fred's mother hates having such a dim-witted son and planned to apply the Scooby project on him. In other words, she wanted to change his brain with someone smarter so that when this baby inherited her multi-million-dollar empire, his incompetence wouldn't ruin the company. It's harsh, but fair. Fred's father, who is also hypnotized, appears later and stops everyone to facilitate the brain swap between his wife and Fred. However, Fred, angered by what his mother intended to do to him, breaks free and releases his friends. He tries to stop his mother. Meanwhile, Meg and Velma want to leave, but Fred's mother reappears and wants to eliminate them to protect the secret. Just then, Norbit shows up and tells Velma that he loves her and has come to save her. When Fred's mother shoots at Velma, Norbit uses a sword and deflects the bullet, causing Fred's mother to be crushed. Velma does her victory dance for solving the case. How twisted, how dark, how treacherous. Later, we see the mayor rewarding the gang for solving the case, but none of them are friends yet because Norbit practically killed Fred's mother. Finally, we see Velma happy with her mother, and when she goes to talk to the police chief to acknowledge her as a good detective, he tells her, "You have a great brain. It truly means a lot, almost like a man." And that's how the Velma series ends. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more interesting movies.